Thank you for joining us today. My name is John Kennedy, and I'm with the FBI National Academy Associates. We're excited to co-host today's webinar with our alliance partner, Utility. Today's presentation is entitled Automated License Plate Recognition, Addressing Misconceptions and Key Considerations to Select the Best Solution for Your Community. I'd like to thank Utility for their continued support, partnership, and commitment to law enforcement by sharing their expertise, technology, and information with our FBI National Academy Associates members and constituents. For those attendees who may not be familiar with the FBI National Academy Associates, we are a nonprofit international organization of 16,000 plus senior law enforcement executives dedicated to providing our communities, states, countries, and the profession with the highest degree of law enforcement expertise, training, education, and information. We are the strongest law enforcement leadership network in the world and are dedicated to strengthening the rule of law around the globe. Now it really gives me great pleasure to introduce to you today's moderator, Ted Metzger. Ted, it's all yours.
Thanks so much, John. For our attendees, welcome to today's discussion focused on automated license plate readers, commonly known as ALPRs. As John said, I'm Ted Metzger with Jackson Spalding, an integrated marketing and public relations agency based in Atlanta. Before joining Jackson Spalding, I was a television news producer for more than 17 years with CNN, CNN International, the BBC, and the PBS NewsHour. I'm here today moderating this discussion on behalf of Utility, the technology company that provides groundbreaking digital systems for frontline professions that depend on speed, accuracy, easy to access data, and transparency in their work. And we are proud to be here in partnership with John and the FBI NAA. Today, I'm joined by Chief Gary Woodruff of the Lawrence, Indiana Police Department, along with two members of the Utility team, Business Manager and retired West Lafayette, Indiana Police Department Deputy Chief of Police Chris Leroux, and Andy Jessen, who serves as the company's ALPR product manager. We've brought this group of experts together to discuss the common misconceptions about ALPR, the benefits of the technology, and the best practices to consider when selecting and implementing it. We're going to begin today by meeting our panel. If everyone could give our audience a brief introduction, that would be great. Chief Woodruff, let's begin with you.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here and share with all the attendees in the webinar here and with the distinguished colleagues that are also going to be sharing. My name is Gary Woodruff. I'm the police chief with the Lawrence, Indiana Police Department. We're situated right in the middle of central Indiana, right in Indianapolis/Marion County. We're an agency of 65 full-time sworn officers. We're allocated for that. We're operating at 57 now, like most other law enforcement agencies are shorthanded. We're a very busy agency here on the northeast side of Indianapolis, and we have several reserve officers, about 30 or so reserve officers who volunteer their time with us as law enforcement officers. We have 115 total people under our roof, including our own communications center and civilian support staff. So we're a very busy department. I always say we get more done with less. And we are, full disclosure, we are a utility agency. We utilize utility products for our body worn and in-car camera systems. We implemented them in 2017. I believe we were the first agency in Indiana to partner with Utility for a body worn camera solution provider, and we've had very good success with our program in getting it up and running and sustaining it.
Great, thanks so much, Chief Woodruff. Chris, why don't you go next?
Thanks, and again, like Gary, I'm honored to be here today as an NA grad. We value that partnership. I retired after 29 years of service as a deputy chief from the West Lafayette, Indiana Police Department, home of Purdue University. I've been with Utility now as a business manager for about 3 years, and my region covers the states of Florida, Georgia, Alabama, and Mississippi. You know, as law enforcement professionals, we understand two things hold true. Change is inevitable, and the strategies we use today may not work tomorrow. I look forward to sharing information with you guys today, and hopefully this will be informational for all of us.
Great, thanks, Chris. Andy?
Yeah, thanks, Ted. And like Chris and Chief have mentioned, I'm very honored to be able to take part in this discussion. My name is Andy Jessen, and I'm currently the product manager at Utility. I have about 20 years of product management experience, kind of starting in the gambling industry, working on several initiatives related to software and hardware components that make up kind of your modern day slot machine. After several years, I transitioned from slot machines to developing online poker software and the infrastructure for managing those offshore servers in Belize and both in Guatemala. From there, I kind of pivoted into the security space, developing visitor management software. And it was kind of during that time that I began working with LPR, or license plate recognition systems, that we would use to kind of quickly identify repeat guests and for tracking contractor and vendor activity throughout communities and facilities.
Great. Thanks, Andy, and thanks to all of you for joining us today. I want to jump into my questions in a moment, but I also want to let the audience know that we love to receive questions from you as well. During the session, please submit any questions you have as you think of them. You can type them into the chat and we will work them into the conversation. And the more audience participation there is, the better off these conversations are. We'd love to hear from you and what's on your mind as we go through this hour together. With that, let's get started. In the last decade, ALPR technology can now accurately read 98% of vehicle license plates, which helps law enforcement improve the rate and accuracy of monitoring cars connected with criminal activities. However, the tool, which we know to be effective in keeping communities safe, has become a hot topic of debate, as there are many misconceptions amongst lawmakers and the communities they represent regarding how the technology works, how it is operated, and how it impacts privacy. With the proliferation of this misinformation, it is becoming increasingly difficult for law enforcement to communicate that ALPR is a force for good that helps protect the communities they serve. With this in mind, we'd like to start today's discussion with a question for you, the audience. You will see the opportunity to answer this poll. Has your agency had to address community concern during the implementation of ALPR technology? And we'll give you a couple seconds to answer that poll, and we'll see where the results are as you answer. All right, so we're seeing a little bit of a split here. The group is, just to remind everyone of the question, has your agency had to address community concern regarding the implementation of ALPR technology? 42% said yes, 58% said no. Interesting result, and we'll sort of get some insights. And if you have any questions related to that, please put them in the chat, and we'll answer those as the discussion moves forward. But we really appreciate everyone participating in the poll. And let's go through the goals for this session for the esteemed panel that we brought together today. Following today's discussion, we hope the audience comes away with the following understanding and knowledge about ALPR. An overview of ALPR technology of the past, present, and future, how to address common misconceptions about the community needs for ALPR, including privacy concerns and response times, key insights to consider when selecting ALPR technology, the benefits of effective ALPR technology for agencies, district attorneys, and communities, and real-life examples of how ALPR technology supports agencies and communities. So that's really the goals for today's session. And so I want to dive right into the questions. Andy, let me kick it off with you and your deep knowledge of this technology. Can you just start by giving us a high-level overview of LPR and ALPR technology and how has it evolved since it started?
Yeah, absolutely. So kind of in the early days of a license plate recognition installation would kind of consist of big, bulky, high-resolution cameras. Those cameras would have to be paired with image enhancers like a white or infrared light blaster for dark conditions, being able to capture the plates in kind of a dark time of day. These cameras would then kind of have to be connected to an on-site high processing PC through some type of video capture card to be able to extract or pull the characters off of the license plates. And then that license plate data was kind of just housed on that local PC or that local server. But kind of since that initial time, with all technology, that camera footprint has really kind of been able to shrink and get smaller, while actually increasing the resolution and the quality of the image capture. Along with these cameras, they can now also include their built-in image enhancers. So they'll have some kind of IR or backlight kind of built into the camera. And these cameras are also able now to have that processing engine embedded into the camera for reading and extracting the license plate data, basically removing the need for any kind of on-site or local PC. Another evolution that has kind of taken place is in our internet connectivity, specifically around cellular connectivity. So now these cameras can actually transmit their images or the video back to a cloud-based platform or solution to start conducting that analysis. And really kind of the final piece, and to me, this has kind of been one of the biggest evolutions when it comes to license plate recognition, and that is in the analysis or the processing engine itself, where initially the artificial intelligence was really able to just pull the numbers and the letters off of the license plates. Today, those AI engines or processing engines can actually determine the vehicle make, the vehicle model, the color of the vehicle, the body type of the vehicle, and also the state that the tag is issued from, along with the numbers and letters off of the license plate. So there's really been some kind of significant evolution in not only the hardware, but the software that kind of powers license plate recognition solutions today.
Yeah, so Andy, when you think about the technology, where it's been and where it's going, it feels like, to me, it's come a long way from that starting point to where it is right now. Is that fair?
Oh, that's very fair. And along with this evolution, a big piece of that is the cost of the deployment has reduced or gone down dramatically. Where kind of in the early stages, it was almost unattainable from a cost perspective, because you were paying for the camera, you were paying for some type of high-speed internet connection, you're paying for on-site servers, you were then having to pay for redundancy. So yeah, you're absolutely right. It's gone down and evolved dramatically.
Yeah, thanks for that, Andy. And now for the practical, I want to turn to Chief Woodruff. Following up on that, when did your agency adopt ALPR technology, and how has the evolution of the technology that Andy spoke about impacted the work with your team?
So we had first license plate reader system, and either late 2005 or early 2006, believe it or not. It was a vehicle-based. We obtained that through a partnership with the National Insurance Crime Bureau, NICB. If any of you are familiar with that organization, they had an agent that was local here that got us connected with them, and they donated that system to us on one of our vehicles. So it was a mobile system, and exactly as Andy was describing, it was a bit had its own IR light sensors on there, and it was definitely a Gen 1 technology, to say the least. And but it did produce some good, and it was a contained system also. It wasn't connected to any external databases through law enforcement information systems or NCIC, anything like that. It was a contained system. But we did have some success with it, especially with stolen car recoveries locally and some other events. And then the technology has evolved since then to the versions that are there today that are much better, much more high definition, and most of ours are more static locations as opposed to mobile. We do not currently have any mobile ALPRs in use with our department. We have several static locations, not just here in Lawrence in our city, but in partner agencies as well across central Indiana, within Indianapolis and several other surrounding communities. I think the amazing thing, like Andy was saying, is the interconnectivity of all those also. We can search those databases for partial license plate numbers, full license plate numbers, or other information we may have about a crime vehicle that we are looking for. And if it's been observed on those ALPR systems, we can find that. It gives us tremendous lead information.
And
Hey,
Chief,
Chief, do you?
go ahead.
I was going to ask the Chief. Do you kind of feel like the kind of advanced analytics as far as the data that these cameras are able to pull? Do you feel like that has also kind of enhanced it, where you're not just looking for a license plate, but you have all this additional what I call metadata that is now captured along with the license plate, or maybe sometimes there is no license plate, but you can get that vehicle specific information?
Tremendously, yeah, agreed. You don't necessarily have to have a license plate number, or even a partial. It helps if you do have that, but you don't have to have that. We could be looking for a white Chevrolet with a Nike swoosh on the back of it, and the search technology allows us to do that. It's really pretty amazing. But remember, I think it's very important. I know we're going to touch on this later, but these are looking at the public street, that vehicles that are being driven in the public thoroughfare, and I think that's a very important point of distinction to make for agencies who are considering implementing these. The poll kind of surprised me a little bit, but for agencies where that privacy concern is there, and we've had some concerns expressed by some of our citizens about that, we explain how it works. As far as giving our detectives the lead information that they need, and our field officers, yes, that smart search technology, the AI interface, it's indispensable and very robust, and we've solved a tremendous amount of cases that may not have been solved without implementing this technology here in our community and the surrounding communities.
And just staying with you're right, Chief, we want to talk about the community and privacy concerns, and that'll be a big part of the discussion, but I want to stay with the technology part of it just for a second here. You just talked about starting in 2005, 2006 and evolving to the present. How do you, as a police department, keep up with the technology changes? Has that been sort of seamless as the technology has changed and those improvements? And how have you seen it change over the last 5 to 7 years, for example, until now?
Yeah, I think for us anyway, the proliferation of agencies municipalities investing in these technologies has certainly grown quite a bit. It started off with a few cameras on a trial basis by Indianapolis, and then that word of mouth starts traveling among public safety and law enforcement officials, and you have a couple of good successes, and it's like, wait, how'd you guys do that? Oh, this is how you did it. Oh, well, what did we learn about that? And typically you have somebody or somebody's on your staff, depending on how large or small your agency is, that's kind of that techno buff, if you will, and whether that's their actual full-time job or whether that's something that they are just interested in, they can help keep us up on that technology. And as we invested in our body-worn camera project, that kind of connected us to all things technology, and as those solutions were offered out there by the various companies, we were able to stay up with that and understand what each of those companies offered, and identify which solutions would work best for us and our community where we're at. And like I said, in neighboring and partnering with our other area law enforcement agencies, that was a really big deal, being able to access the information. But people that are committing crime in Lawrence are also committing crime in Indianapolis. They're committing crime in all the surrounding communities as well. Crime doesn't know any boundaries anymore, nor should we, in pursuit of people who are committing crime, especially violent crime, within our communities.
Yeah, and that's a very important point, Chief Woodruff. And I want to get into some of the community concerns of this, and I'll get back to you in a second, Chief Woodruff, but I just want to bring Chris into the conversation as well. For communities who are thinking about the concerns, the privacy concerns, what are the main things that they should be thinking about and considering about those concerns, and then how to communicate them to the public?
Yeah, that's a very good point. And as I travel, even my region now, and when I was deputy chief, every community is different. And that survey that you put out earlier, a little surprising to me, but shows that. And so as law enforcement professionals, we need to know our community. And I think that we need to engage our community stakeholders early and often with the technology that we're rolling out, so they're familiar with it. It's not a surprise that we're putting on them at the last minute. I think we also need to ensure that communities have that are aware that we have policies in place that address some of their concerns, such as retention of information or data, and that we're going to follow state laws regarding those items. You know, we need to make it clear to our communities that, at least in my opinion, that only trained law enforcement professionals will have access to this information, and they're going to use it to further investigations. Again, all of that ALPR data that we collect, I think it's important our community knows that it's owned by the agency that's collecting it, and that we follow our policies, and that prevents this information from being shared or controlled by a third party. Again, we serve our community, and we know our community, and we know what their expectations are. And I think that helps us better lay a foundation for our policies and how we deliver that service to our community.
Yeah, and Chris, just on that point, you know, and I'd love to hear both Chief Woodruff and Chris said they were a little surprised by the poll. If anyone wants to enter into the chat and has, you know, a thought or a question based on why you know, what you're hearing from your community, we'd love to hear that as well, just to help us understand some of the poll data. So we'll watch the chat for that as well. But Chris, you know, you mentioned the timing of it. I assume, you know, one of the potential answers in the poll is that it hasn't been introduced in certain communities, and they're considering whether to introduce it. So when you talk about early and you know, communicating clearly, how do you see the timing? Like when it is rolling out, what are the best practices in terms of communicating that with the community?
Well, again, from what I hear, traveling my region, and again, practices that we used at West Lafayette, you know, you want to start this process as you as an agency is looking at this technology, as you're starting to figure out what you need, what you want, the goals with your program as you want to roll them out. That's the time to start this process of engaging neighborhood associations and, again, different stakeholders in the community, to allow them to know that, hey, we're looking at going this direction, and, you know, talk to me about your thoughts and concerns, and let us then start doing community meetings and, like I said, neighborhood associations to work through these issues and assure you that we're going to do the things that our community standards expect us to do.
Chief Woodruff, you know, you've been dealing with this a while. You talked about how long your agency has had this technology in-house and talking about it with your community. Can you give us a sense at the beginning what it was like, and then what the conversations are like now and how it's changed over time?
Yeah, in that first implementation in 05 and 06, late 05, early 06, it was so new to everybody that we were just kind of getting it sorted out. And again, we kind of had a loaner model edition that we put on one of our squad cars. So it was pretty rudimentary, I would say, at that point. But especially with the recent surge in communities investing in these ALPRs around their communities, we've all done our part. Keep in mind, I've been a public information officer since the 90s, and so it comes very natural to us and to me to be very open, not only in our community meetings, as Chris was mentioning, with HOA groups, but also with our elected leaders, and educating them on it. You know, whether it's the folks who manage the finances, such as our city council. You know, they have to allocate the funds. Our Board of Works and Public Safety, they're the ones who authorize the spending of those funds. So, you know, being open when we're spending any taxpayer dollars, but in particular when we're investing in technology, we think that's a great way to go. And then leveraging your local media and explaining and being very open that this is technology that the municipality or your agency is considering investing in. Here are the benefits to that, and here are you know, some of the potential community concerns, and just being very open about that investment, I think, is a win-win for the community in every way. And, you know, we do citizens academies, we do you know, speak to HOA groups, Chamber of Commerce, for instance. Any of the public appearances that we're doing, we're sharing that story with the groups, and hopefully getting some you know, knowledge is power, right? more education and more knowledge we can share with people about what we're doing. We have to follow the laws also, of course. There's some things that we can't necessarily talk about when it comes to investing in technology, though, be it the body-worn cameras or the ALPRs. We've found that openness is very important to do as soon as you can in the process, exactly as Chris mentioned. And we had that same thought process also, educating the public well ahead of time as we're going even through that consideration and that purchasing process.
So Chief, do you get a lot of like media or ongoing community inquiries now that you feel like you've been using the technology for a while and it's been, you've been using it more frequently, it's become a more of a part of the law enforcement practice where you are?
Yeah, not anymore. At the beginning, when many agencies were investing in that around Central Indiana in particular, yeah, there were some quite a few stories of interest done by local media, and and agencies were very open and upfront about that, including us. So I think that's a good thing, especially as the different municipalities and the different government leadership was investing in these technologies, being open about it, even going through the purchasing process. It's all public record when we're investing in technology like that, and I think engaging our stakeholders, all stakeholders, business owners, members of the public, media, taking that holistic approach to it is a win for everyone, especially when investing in technology like many of our agencies have.
Andy, I want to bring you back in a second, but Chris, just briefly, since you're talking to many different communities in your region, what are the most common questions that you're hearing from that either law enforcement agencies are getting or that you're hearing when you're talking about this ALPR technology?
Yeah, probably some of the biggest things I hear again is that policy driven. Does your agency have policies? Do they have a goal with the implementation of their program? And then again, that retention period seems to be a very in-depth topic that people want to talk about and spend some time with, as far as how long is that information retained and who has access to that information. Seems to be hot topics.
Yeah, got it. Andy, just throw this back to you. Understanding that agencies must thread the needle to ensure that they have effective technology, but also address these community concerns. What are the 3 features or functionalities that agencies should look for when selecting an ALPR system?
Yeah, so really kind of that first item would be, you got to make sure you're going to have a good, high quality camera, capable of kind of capturing these images of vehicles, really during all conditions. This can't just work during the daylight hours. It can't just work when it's sunny. This thing needs to function, whether it's, raining, sleeting, snowing, and it needs to also, capture high quality images, during the nighttime, during evening hours. The second would really be, ensuring that you have a reliable analysis or kind of processing engine that is, accurately extracting the characters or the numbers and letters from the license plate. Typically during the analysis, LPR systems are able to give you a kind of confidence rating, right? So the AI is able to tell you, I'm 92% sure that this license plate is ABC123, and you want to make sure that your system is kind of in that mid to upper 90s. You want it to kind of be 96 to 98% accuracy when it's grabbing all 6 or 7 characters, along with the make, model, color, and body type of the vehicle in the image. And then really kind of lastly, and what I kind of think and the chief kind of alluded to this is, having a very powerful reporting and searching capabilities. So you're able to really kind of analyze the data that's captured. This kind of really allows the agencies to get really kind of creative with the information they're capturing. So they, agencies would have the ability to define routes, to kind of analyze traffic flow and traffic patterns. They'd have the ability to conduct location-based searching, where they can look for specific vehicles or specific vehicle types within proximity to a crime during a given time frame. And it also, would kind of allow them to do, caravan analysis. Maybe there's a vehicle of interest, and I'm seeing other vehicles or common vehicles traveling within a close proximity of that vehicle, or searches like that. So once you kind of have that data, really you can get, again, like I mentioned, very, very creative with how you are analyzing and using that data to kind of speed up the investigation process.
And Andy, I'm just curious about this, and if the other panelists want to jump in too, if they have responses to this. When police departments or agencies ask you about the learning curve, because you're talking about a lot of capabilities there, right? In terms of being able to search and really use these tools effectively. What is the sort of learning curve for police departments, agencies, from the time they decide, hey, we want ALPR technology, to when they can effectively implement it and do some of this higher level stuff that you're talking about?
Well, really, the learning curve isn't as steep as it may sound, because the ALPR platforms today have a lot of this, analytics built into it, where kind of allows you to, do GPS or proximity-based searching, where you're simply entering in a license plate, you're defining, GPS coordinates, or you're saying, hey, I need to find, any vehicles between these two, times of the day, and it needs to be within 3 miles from a specific incident. So a lot of the platforms today, Ted, have kind of taken the data science out of the end user's hands, and we've kind of provided those tools or put those tools directly at the fingertips of the law enforcement agencies.
Yeah, I'm curious, Chief, if a neighboring police department or another police chief came to you and said, hey, I'm thinking about implementing it. How heavy a lift will this be for me to do this? What would you say to them?
Yeah, absolutely. And we've had that. We've had once area agencies find out you and others have invested in this type of technology. Absolutely, we're all talking all the time. And I've had several chiefs approach us. Hey, what about this system you invested in? What's your experience been? And the technology seems to be like it's very simplified now. The user interfaces are cop proof, for lack of a better term, and they're very simple to interact with, much simpler maybe than some other user interfaces may have been. I think the solution providers are trying to offer that. If the scalability or the usability is not simplified, agencies are not going to use it. Police officers are not going to use it. If it's not easy to use, simple to use, there's a lot going on with police detectives, with police officers in the field. The technology that is at their fingertips is pretty amazing now in the information, but it needs to be simple to use for most law enforcement officers. I think it's a really big deal. And then the information that you get back out of it also. How many times have we all been on a scene for all the law enforcement officers and agencies out there where somebody can give you their partial license plate number, or maybe, I think it was a dark vehicle with round tail lights, and maybe had a particular feature, a hubcap missing. Let's say, for instance, we're able to now enter that information into the database and check those LPR cameras, those ALPR cameras that are around, and get some lead information based off of that, and give our detectives some places to start when it comes to identifying not only the vehicle, but then leading to who the person that was responsible for committing that crime while using that vehicle. So I think the simplicity of it and the user interfaces that the solution providers out there are providing now are pretty amazing. The amount of data that you can get back for kind of minimal input or simple input is very robust.
Yeah, no, and Chris, just on that idea of, as you know, agencies, as police departments, in your experience as you're traveling around, get educated on what the capabilities of the system are and how advanced the technology is. Does that help allay some of the concerns in your experience, or what can help them make that argument that this technology is going to help the law enforcement in those communities?
Well, yeah, and I agree it does. The more technology an agency has at their fingertips, the more robust that digital evidence management system is. It now allows them to share tools with the community on how the system works and how they can use that information to solve crimes in the community. And at the end of the day, that's what everyone wants. They want a safe community. And these type of systems go a long way in providing that.
Yeah, and it sounds like what you're saying, Chris, is, and the chief was alluding to this too, just to put a fine point on, you know, some of the things we've said earlier, which is the more open you are with the community about the capabilities of this technology and what it can do, actually helps more than it hurts in terms of community engagement.
Absolutely, I agree completely, and I assume Gary would as well.
Yeah, concur with that assessment completely. And you know, again, people want safe communities, and they like hearing and knowing when crime, in particular violent crime, has been resolved, and the sooner the better. And leveraging this type of technology assists our officers, our detectives, with solving crime faster, additional stolen vehicle recoveries, additional crimes being solved in a much more efficient way. We've all had unsolved crimes where you have a vague vehicle description prior to the ALPR technology being out there. That's all we have. We put those descriptions out to the media, and we would get some, you know, several tips. We were all very thankful for those over the years. Now we can use these resources as lead information and develop those leads into potential suspect information and build cases that way. Solving crime, recovering, making stolen vehicle and other recoveries, and holding people accountable who are not only committing those crimes in your community, but in the surrounding communities as well. Again, we all know that crime knows no boundaries. We should know no boundaries in the pursuit of people who are committing those crimes throughout our jurisdictions.
Yeah, and that collaboration is a big piece of that. I just want to remind the audience as well, if you have any questions that occur to you during this discussion, please feel free to put them in the chat, and we can ask those to our esteemed panel as well. Andy, I just wanted to come back to you on this idea of, you're talking about all this information that's going into the system, the ALPR system, and just for one of the concerns is what happens to that data? What happens to that information? So can you explain to us and walk us through anybody who has concerns about the security of the information obtained in the ALPR system?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that you've kind of touched on one of the more sensitive topics when it comes to ALPR, and you're exactly right. What are we going to do to make sure my information is secure? So there's kind of a multi-phased approach that happens where the first thing is you need to from an agency level that access needs to be controlled by kind of limiting who can view and kind of who can report on the data that's gathered by the ALPR system. This really kind of helps minimize that chain of custody in regards to who's accessing this sensitive information. Along with who's accessing it, it's important to know, not only who is accessing the data, but you really want to know when and why they're accessing that data. So the LPR system should be capable of tracking not only who is performing the search, when they are performing that search, but then a very critical piece is, well, why are they doing this lookup? Is it to further an investigation? Is there an open case that they're associating this to? Is there some type of crime or infraction that's leading to this investigation? So it's really important to kind of capture not only who and when, but also the why. And then on top of that, when you're capturing the who and the when and the why, the system should be capable of doing some auditing reporting. So the agencies can actually run some kind of audit reports to see, and this is a part of that transparency, to be able to share with the community as far as, well, these are the folks that are accessing the data. Here are the searches they're performing, and here is why they're performing those searches for an auditing perspective. And those audits should really kind of be run on a kind of an agency defined interval to, again, ensure that only authorized personnel are accessing that information. Another big piece when it comes to the license plate recognition data is retention policies. So how long is an image or a video of my license plate and my license plate information going to be searchable in the system? So a lot of platforms have agency configured retention policies. So after 30 days, 60 days, a year, if that transaction is not a part of an active or ongoing investigation, that data is essentially purged from the system. And really to kind of button up, how we can eliminate concerns with the accessing information. All of these policies and procedures should be shared and should be communicated to the community on kind of a regular interval, along with, and Chief and Chris each kind of touched on this, but kind of sharing the statistics and sharing some of the successes and the wins that the ALPR system has provided to show just how much safer the community is by having these systems kind of actively capturing information on the vehicles passing through a community or designated areas.
And Andy, you touched on this a little bit, but we got a question in the chat about what does a typical audit report entail? Like what would that look like?
Yeah, so a typical audit report would kind of show you the date and the time when a license plate search was conducted. It would show you the actual license plate details. So kind of, hey, I looked up license plate ABC123. It would show you the user that essentially conducted that search, but then it would also show you the reasoning why. What was the reason that prompted them to perform the search? I was bored on Thursday afternoon and wanted to look this up. That's not a valid reason. There needs to be something substantial, and usually those reasons are hard-coded reasons. Reasons that the agency is able to set up and control to ensure that the access is for lack of a better term, it's all above board. Nobody's doing any personal or nefarious searching. It's all in the spirit of good and solving crime.
Chief, how do you make sure that happens in your department, that all the searches that happen through the ALPR system are justified and necessary?
Sure. Yeah. So each user has their own login information, so we know exactly who is logging in and what they're doing on that system, and there has to be a case or a reference tracking number that is associated with that. So you always have a cross reference that this particular search was done in regards to this particular investigation under this case number, CAD number. However an agency tracks their numbers. So that's part of the CGIS information system expectations, and it's very important. But most of the privacy concerns, since you're touching on that we've experienced here in our community, if I may shift for just a moment, has been more of the big brother. Are you watching every place that a vehicle is being driven and tracking that for no reason other than just quote government intrusion? So I think once we educate people, that's just not the case, that we are strictly looking for vehicles that were described to us by the public or witnesses or other sources of information that are utilized in the commissions of crimes. We're not out there just doing generalized searches for no good reasons. That we're really honing in and razoring in on those specific vehicles that are being used in crimes. That's it. I think that goes a long way towards alleviating a lot of those public concerns that may exist.
Yeah,
And Ted,
oh,
I'm
go
sorry.
ahead, Chris. Go
Well,
ahead,
Ted,
Chris.
if I can real quick, just to jump in on Andy's portion of an audit trail, for our law enforcement circles, it should look very much like a chain of custody. You should be able to look at that and see who's touched it, where they touched it from, any notes or anything they did with that information, that data, and a reason why they've accessed it. And to Gary's point, these systems are set up so each user has their specific rules, rights, and permissions, and they can only get into the system in certain places. So again, assuring your community that only trained law enforcement personnel have access to that data to further investigations, and here's how we control who has access, I think is a very important part to communicate.
Yeah. And I want to switch gears a little bit to another big topic, which is effectiveness, right? You invest in the technology, you implement it, you get the community buy-in. But Chris, when you're thinking about the effectiveness for police departments and agencies and district attorneys, how do you think about that? Because that is a big question, right? If we're going to do this, we want to make sure it is effective. So how should agencies, police departments measure and think about effectiveness of this technology?
Well, again, and that's a good question, and that's often maybe more difficult to drill down on because every agency's goals or their program could be slightly different. What we do know is a past study shows that just a little over 70% of the crimes that are committed involve a vehicle that's used in the commission of that crime. So we know the importance of this data and how that can translate into further investigations and solvability. So, ALPR data can help develop and pursue criminal investigations in a more timely manner using less resources. They're very good at locating suspects and witnesses and maybe even potential victims that we weren't aware just because they were in the area of a crime. Again, it's one of those, can we put a firm number on a success rate? I don't know that that's realistic, but I think at the end of the day, we can use this as a tool in the collection of all of the data that allows us to better prepare a case in a more timely manner. Because again, like Gary pointed out, Chief's very correct, and our community has expectations, and they expect us to be able to solve crimes in a timely manner. And I think this technology allows for that to happen. And at the end of the day, I think there is a correlation in our prosecution and solvability rate.
Yeah, and Chief Woodruff, in terms of those real world examples of using the technology effectively, could you cite one or two for our audience where you've seen the technology really work?
Absolutely. So our detectives have indicated to me and to us that this ALPR technology that we and other agencies have invested in here in Central Indiana have been such a game changer for them. Probably the biggest crime fighting tool that our detectives have leveraged in several years, and it's really an effective way of developing lead information that leads to suspect identification, both suspect vehicle and people who are committing crime. There was one in particular where the license plate reader camera was placed, and just so happened that we captured a drive-by shooting. You actually see the person's arm out the window with the gun in their hand, and firing that weapon at two individuals. And fortunately, that nobody died in that incident, but they certainly were injured. And we were able to use, once we did the initial search based on the descriptions that we were provided by our victims and witnesses, we were able to identify that vehicle and the people occupying that vehicle just within hours, within minutes to hours. Without that information, it might have been days, weeks, months, or never in identifying that vehicle. Based on witness information in a traumatic moment, especially when you're talking about people who've been the victim of a crime. We had a homicide here in Lawrence at the beginning of the year, where the license plate reading technology of us being able to track where that vehicle went provided significant evidence that the prosecutor's office will be able to use in presenting that information in court. It was contained in the probable cause affidavit, and certainly will be big pieces of evidence that will be presented in court as to where this vehicle was in proximity with where the crimes occurred at, and where the victim and suspect started from, ended up at, and where they traveled to in between. So those are just a couple of examples where had we not had that technology to be able to produce that evidence, we may not have solved those crimes as effectively, as efficiently, and provide the compelling evidence. At the end of the day, law enforcement officers and agencies is all about convictions in court, right? The arrest is just the first chapter in a 100 chapter book. Getting to the arrest is just the first part of it. Working your way through the adjudication process, providing the irrefutable evidence in court to either a judge or a jury of a person's peers that convinces people beyond a reasonable doubt that a person is guilty of committing a crime. That's ultimately what it's all about, is it not?
That's right. That's right. And as we wrap up this hour, we're getting close to the end of the hour, but I'd love to ask this question to both Chris and Andy. We can start with you, Andy, as we just clearly heard from Chief Woodruff. This is being used in a lot more than just stolen vehicles, but that is the common idea, is that this is a technology for catching stolen vehicles. How often do you hear that question, Andy, and how do you typically answer it when they say that, oh, I know that there's ALPRs, this is for catching stolen vehicles?
Well, kind of to what the chief alluded to is we try to let them know that, you know, the ALPRs, the stolen vehicle piece is just a very small portion of this. I mean, there's studies that have been done where the numbers are around the upper 60s to low 70s of the number of crimes that involve a vehicle. So, you know, there's always, if there's a burglary, they had to get away in something. If there was a hit and run, you know, they were in a vehicle. If there was you know, some kind of infraction, they typically involve a vehicle. And by having these you know, LPR cameras you know, kind of strategically placed around a city or a community, you're able to, you know, essentially provide you know, the officers, they can start these investigations on step 3 of the process versus step 1, because to Chief's point, you know, somebody can provide and say, hey, I'm not really sure what the license plate was, but it was a blue truck and one of the windows was knocked out. Well, these cameras have the ability to detect and you know, allow for searching and reporting on that specific criteria, to where then you're kind of taking the subset of, you know, 1,500 blue trucks. I can now narrow it down to 7, and that gives me, you know, a very you know, kind of laser focus of where I need to start looking to determine, you know, who is my, or, you know, who's the person of interest for this. So we always let them know that you know, the capturing or finding the stolen vehicles is literally just one small aspect that the license plate recognition cameras can provide.
And Chris, we got another question from the chat, and Andy would be interested in your perspective on this as well. If there are concerns around the error rates around the technology and what it finds, how do you address any concerns if there is the perception that they have high error rates to ALPR technology?
Yeah, I can go ahead and step in with that one, Chris, if you would like. So from this kind of goes back to something I had mentioned earlier when it comes to the data that is captured through the analysis. There is a confidence rating. So the AI engine is able to provide, you know, I'm 75% confident that these are the tags. I'm 85% confident that this is the vehicle type. So if you are seeing that you're having extremely low analysis or detection on plates. It could be that the camera is in the wrong position. There could be something faulty with the hardware, or a lot of these AI systems today have a learning capability. So maybe there's just some correction to the engine itself, where it's continually detecting Tennessee tags where the letter B is being determined as the letter 8. There's always a way to kind of hone in and correct, for lack of a term, poor recognition or poor analysis when it comes to specific plates or the location or area or environment where the camera or technology is deployed.
Yeah, and Ted, if I can just chime in on that real quick. So again, oftentimes this type of information technology is lead information where further investigation needs to be done. We all know that eyewitnesses are, often under stressful situations. Again, like Andy said, it looked like a B, but maybe it was an 8. This type of technology is used often for exonerating or alibying individuals who were not at a scene, where maybe a witness provided some information that similarly matches, but we can use this technology to go, no, that car wasn't. Because we have a comprehensive program, we can show that car wasn't. It was not in the area. It was on the east side of town while this event was occurring. So again, this type of technology can also alibi or prove that an individual is not involved in a crime, and we need to push that information out a little bit more, I think.
And I'd love to hear from all of you quickly on this, as we have about just a few minutes left. I'll start with you, Chief. As you think about the future of this technology, what is your hope for it in the future going forward?
I think additional communities would be well served to invest in this type of technology. And we found it to be the case here, where one community maybe makes that investment, one municipality makes that investment, and then everybody else starts to follow that lead. And next thing you know, you have a pretty comprehensive set of data from around your community. And it doesn't just have to be in urban areas; it can certainly be in more rural communities as well. So it can seem a little bit expensive at first, but I think if you allocate the funds to make that investment, kind of get your foot in the door, so to speak, even if you're investing in just a couple of cameras, 5 cameras maybe, and you start to see those successes, success begets success, and that momentum starts to build, and other communities can come on board with that, with investing in that technology as well.
Since we're running up on the top of the hour, I think that's a great place to end it. Andy, Chris, Chief Woodruff, thanks so much for joining us today and really giving us better insight to ALPR technology. And thank you all for attending today's webinar. If you have follow-up questions that you'd like answered, please email us at info@utility.com. That's info@utility.com, and we will respond to you. We really appreciate everyone attending, both our panelists and the audience. It's really been a valuable hour. We'll share a recap and video of this conversation, and we welcome any feedback in our survey. On behalf of the entire team at Utility, thank you for making the time to join us. Please stay well and stay safe, and we hope to see you at our next webinar event. John, I'll throw it back to you.
Thanks, Ted, and thank you, Chief Woodruff, Chris, and Andy for an outstanding presentation today. I really enjoyed this conversation. I'd like to also thank all the attendees, as Ted mentioned, for your participation today. We hope you found this enlightening and useful for your agencies. And I'd also like to give special thanks to the entire utility team for their continued support of law enforcement, and in particular the FBI National Academy Associates. Today's webinar will be archived on our website at fbinaa.org. And this concludes today's presentation. And I'd like to echo what Ted just said. Please stay safe and stay well. We look forward to seeing you again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.